Bush is one of the most unique artists in British musical history. Over the course of 8 albums and 28 years, she has generated a cultural legacy that has truly revolutionised popular music.
What makes her fascinating to her audience is, I think, the fact that she's not necessarily making records for them.
She was a fascinating young woman, and indeed one could say that she was fully hatched. Somehow she hatched and there was an artist.
She's a heroine to female artists and also male artists.
This is a review of that music and the woman who made it. Kate Bush grew up in a quiet part of Kent just outside London in the heart of provincial England. From a very young age she had become captivated by modern music, and while growing up in the progressive 1960s and early 70s, the young Kate began to absorb an eclectic mix of traditions and styles.
In terms of influences you can hear in her work, I've got to say that there's not very much that strikes me. She seems to me one of those rare people who is very much an original. What she'll declare as influences is people like Elton John. And, well, he's a singer-songwriter who plays piano, so you can see that as a starting point.
She was 13 years old when Elton John was at his peak of pop success, and of course that is exactly the moment to be influenced. And one would suspect that Kate was influenced by Elton.
Blue jean baby, L.A. lady, seamstress for the band, pretty eye, pirate smile, you marry a music man.
There is an influence of 70s songwriters like Elton John, who used the piano, or Carole King. But again, there's huge influences of folk music, of English music hall. Kate's truly a one-off. She doesn't really slot into any category, and I think that's what makes her so incredibly special.
I mean, in terms of British female pop singers, you know, I mean, we're talking Dusty Springfield, Sandy Shaw, Lulu. And then you arrive at Kate Bush. So there is no precedent, really. She absolutely was unique. I mean, she really was a one-off. There had never been anybody like her before.
From a remarkably young age, she had begun to compose her own material on the family's upright piano. While still in her early teens, she unofficially auditioned for family friend and Pink Floyd guitarist Dave Gilmour. It would be this encounter that would drastically change her life and set her on the road to pop success.
I was about 15, 16, and we thought it would be really interesting to see if I could get some of my songs published. A friend of the family knew Dave Gilmour, who at that time was looking for talent to either be involved with or produce or encourage. And he came down to hear some of my songs as part of the scouting process. And I think he was intrigued enough to feel that it was worth mastering the demos and presenting them to record companies in that form.
He arranged this really remarkable all-singing, all-dancing demo where Kate went to Abbey Road and Dave hired a 30-piece orchestra. And they made 3 tracks, saxophone song, The Man with the Child in His Eyes, and the other one. Gilmour himself can't remember what the other one was. It didn't go on the record, I suppose, is why that gets lost in the mist of time. Anyway, they were terrific and they impressed the EMI, and that's how the ball started rolling, and EMI signed this development deal with her. They
gave her some money and they gave her a few years just to develop her sound. That would be unheard of today in that way. EMI were prepared to take a chance on an unknown artist and give her time, and a female artist at that, which was very unusual.
Kate used the time EMI had offered her to train and develop as an artist. She left school and concentrated on getting experience playing live, composing new material and attending singing lessons. It was also during this period that she began to train with dancer and mime artist Lindsay Kemp. an experience that would deeply affect the way in which she presented her own work.
I knew that I wanted to do music, but I also knew that there was something missing from the expression. And I was very lucky just to see an ad in a paper. I went to see a show, and it was Lindsay Kemp. And really, I'd never seen anything like it before. And what he was doing was he was using movement without any sound at all, something I'd never experienced. And he was expressing so much, probably more than most people would express with their mouths. And it suddenly dawned on me that there was a whole new world of expression that I hadn't even realised. I was still at school, and it was a few months after that I decided to leave school and to throw myself into the world of music, and dance seemed to be something that was such a parallel to it that I felt it was good for me, especially in terms of being a performer, something that I knew nothing about.
It's all part of her expressing the music and she does dance well. She's using her body like an instrument in the way that she uses her voice like an instrument.
Midway through 1977, it was decided that Kate was finally ready to record her debut album. Sessions for what would become The Kick Inside started at Abbey Road Studios at the end of the summer.
We knew nothing about Kate Bush at all, and we just assumed that this was another young girl, pop singer, etc. And we turned up on the session, and there she was. I think she was 19, and we started working, and within, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, we realised that we were not working with your average pop singer. We were working with a very talented young lady, both in terms of composing and in lyric writing. When all of us came out of that first session, we all went to the canteen or the bar or whatever it was. And we thought, well, you know, either she's going to absolutely bomb or she's going to start a complete revolution. You know, and of course, none of us knew which.
EMI similarly did not know quite what to expect from the 19-year-old's first record. They decided to release one of her most conventional tracks, The Man with the Child in His Eyes. However, Kate had different ideas and insisted that her first single should be the haunting Wuthering Heights, a song based on Emily Bronte's classic 19th century novel of the same name.
I heard her calling. She said her name. Kathy, that was it. Kathy? Oh, I must have been dreaming. Forgive me, Mr. Heathcliff.
Get out of this room.
Get out! Get out, I tell you! Kathy! Come in!
And I'm sure one of the reasons it stuck so heavily in my mind was because of the spirit of Kathy. And as a child, I was called Kathy. It later changed to Kate. It was just a matter of exaggerating all my bad areas because she's a really vile person. She's just so headstrong and passionate and crazy, you know. And it was fun to do, and it took a night and a half.
She was singing as a ghost, a witch, her imagination of that. Kathy not coming back to life, but coming back to haunt Heathcliff and the world at large out on the wily, windy moor.
It was about Kathy haunting her lover Heathcliff and wailing and whining over the moors. Really atmospheric.
Haunt me then. Haunt your murderer. I know that ghosts have wandered on the earth. Be with me always. Take any form, drive me mad. Only do not leave me in this dark alone, for I cannot find you. I cannot live without my life.
It wouldn't have occurred to anyone
I cannot die.
to use as the subject of a lyric a novel that had been written hundreds of years previous. But she did so in a way which struck home emotionally. It really was at the deepest primal need, and it was a sensational bit of songwriting.
Kate won her battle with EMI and convinced them to release Wuthering Heights as her first single. And so, on the 17th of February 1978, Kate Bush was finally released on the British public.
You had a temper like my jealousy, too hard, too greedy.
I first heard Kate when I was at Radio 1 in my program studio, preparing to go on. Kid Jensen was in the next studio, on air, and he played this new single. It was called Wuthering Heights. And at one point, I thought to myself, oh my God, the motor has died, meaning in the turntable, because that was the point where her voice went low and slow. I had no idea that someone would deliberately do that in the middle of a pop record. So I was really intrigued by this. It would have been a disaster if the turntable on Radio 1 had gone dead. And of course, it was genius. It was indescribable brilliance, inconceivable brilliance. She was 19 years old. It was a great classic single. Perfect, perfecto. And of course, the first British #1 written by a British woman.
It was the combination of the piano and Kate's voice just racing up and down the octaves. It was a very startling sound. It was totally new. We hadn't heard anything like it before.
The guitar solo on the fade, which is a long guitar solo, it's almost a minute. But what is so wonderful about it is that it is at times a vamp on the melody, almost jazz-like, but then at times it is the melody. It's Kate as a guitar string. And at the exact fade out, it's exactly the same notes as Kate singing. So there is almost a loop through the whole 4.5 minutes of this record. Even though she's gone, she's still there echoing in your mind, which is perfect for the haunting effect of the record.